lots of Ghana, lots of, all right, so I see Ghana, I see Ivory Coast, I see a few other places in the house. Tema is in the house. Accra. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Ministries. New York is in the house. Washington, D.C. is in the house. All right. Wow. You guys are really, really exciting me. This is quite an internet gathering. Thank you for joining me for this free masterclass. And the reason why I like to do this is because I realize that so many of us are climbing the career ladder in spaces that are a little foreign to what we were used to, accustomed to. And so for those of you who do not know me, let me introduce myself first, then we'll get started with today's masterclass, where I really want to zero in on office politics. On office etiquette, rather, and how do you navigate these seemingly unspoken rules that each of us needs to live by, operate by, in order to have success in the world of work. The reason why this is passion, I'm very passionate about it, and it's a pleasure to teach this, is because I have seen the difference it has made in my own career. I am what you may call a multicultural African. I'm from Ghana. My formative years of my life were spent in the US. We returned to Ghana when I was a teenager. So I adulted in the world of work in Ghana, in, working for small businesses, medium scale businesses, been an entrepreneur, I've started my own business and have been interacting with other businesses. But my turning point in terms of growth, professionally and personally, was as a result of studying at the Protocol School of Washington in 2013, where I learned etiquette, business protocol, intercultural etiquette, all the things that sometimes people don't tell you because it borders on a violation of your right. It borders on discrimination. Sometimes when people hear the word etiquette, in fact, tell me in the chat box, when you hear the word etiquette, what does it mean to you? Tell me in the chat box because I'd love to know what you currently. I dig deep into the do's and don'ts. I see Burkina Faso is in the house, US is in the house, Philly is in the house. Wow, I'm so excited to see how many people have joined from all over the world this free masterclass. All right, so I'm seeing some of your definitions are coming in. It means being polite, not offending anyone. To someone else, it means being refined and polished. A great word. All right. Acceptable behavior within a context. Someone says it's the right way of doing things. What does etiquette mean to you? All right. The good in all places and settings, appropriate ways of doing things. I'm hearing appropriate, the right way, the way to do things, and use the word context. The reason I love teaching this is because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. You grow up in a certain so I grew up, as I said, as someone who was from Ghana living abroad. So very early in my life, I knew what it was like to be the other, being the kind of person that everyone is looking at as the outsider because we had the strange names. We learned how to speak English in the US. So when we went, I didn't know how to speak English. So a lot of us have differentiating characteristics and attributes that make people look, but the lack of etiquette does the same thing to us. People look at us some way, quote unquote. For those of us from Ghana, some way means, you know, weird, awkward, not befitting. So that's why I like teaching this, because sometimes you don't know that you're offending people, and you don't know that the way that you have learned to interact with people are actually keeping you from opportunities. So thank you for those who shared where you're tuning in from and what you understand by etiquette. I want to kick off by introducing myself. My name is Yawa Hansen-Quao. I am from Ghana, proudly so. I'm also certified by the Protocol School of Washington to teach intercultural etiquette, protocol, and dining etiquette. And the reason introduce myself first is so that you understand that I'm certified to tell you the things that I'm telling you, but at the same time, this is not judgment at all. The things that I want to share with you today are to help you expand realms, possibilities for how you might grow in your career, especially since a lot of us on the call today be from Africa, but working for Western style, etc. And so that's why I really want to encourage you to see this as a judgment-free zone and a space you can learn and grow in an atmosphere of trust. Get started momentarily. For those of you joining, I really, someone is saying my internet connection isn't great. Can I be heard? Your internet connection. Oh, all right. I see thumbs up, so I assume I'm good. And everything on my end looks correct. So I'm just going to keep you going. Yeah, a few people said I can be heard. So power. Today's masterclass is focused on office etiquette to do is because I advisory board of the U.S. Ghana Alumni Association, and this is a body. Any studied in the U.S. on an exchange or a fellowship. I'm a proud member because in 2016 I did a fellowship, and really, I'm helping people professionalism, especially if they're trying to do business internationally, right? If you're trying to win on the global stage, trying to become a person of trust, be the person of respect, encourage you to take the knowledge seriously, and if you reasons allow you maybe even get certified in it. My career. A few of you are saying I can be heard, but it keeps breaking. About maybe before I let me just make sure I can still be heard because once my slides are up, I won't monitoring. If I can still be heard, can someone just show me an emoji before I open my slide deck? Because once I open it, all right. All right. So, okay, I'm gonna go ahead with the slides. Um, and I'm starting, people because I am under license by the Paul School of their materials and all of that. I need to pay a license fee. So I'm all right. I am back. Apologies. I've switched my Wi-Fi. Can I be heard? Can someone show me by emoji or in the chat whether I can be heard? All right. People are saying this is much better. Perfect now. Okay, good. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your patience. I just switched Wi-Fi, so hopefully we will have no further interruptions. I'm going to repeat a little bit of what I said before I started seeing the messages, which is the reason why I teach this class is I know that so many of us are growing up or working in Africa, and yet our work experience where we're at now is we're working in a Western style office, and the rules are a little different. So, for example, when I grew up, I was told that to show respect to people, you don't look them in the eye. But the international global standard is that eye contact is an important way, an important instrument for communicating confidence, but also being able to, you know, show good etiquette by looking at people. When I grew up, we were told that a sign of respect is to put your hands behind your back. But when I went to study at Protocol School of Washington, they said your hands must always be seen. When you're not using them, put them beside you. And it took me a lot of unlearning to learn what really is the right standard for the world of work. So that's why I'm really passionate about teaching this body of knowledge. And I do these free classes because I know that not everyone can afford to come to some of my in-person trainings, which in those in-person trainings, I use, certified material that are copyrighted by the Protocol School of Washington. And so I like to do these free sessions where I speak very generally and answer questions and give you some of the tips that can help you put your best foot forward when it comes to polishing your professionalism in the world of work, right? So today's focus, as I shared, is on office etiquette. And I really want to dig in to help you wherever you work, whether you work for yourself or work in a nonprofit or for-profit business, that you'll always be able to put your best foot forward when it comes to how you present yourself. So hopefully you can all see my slides. Why does office etiquette matter? I had asked you at the beginning to give me your definitions of etiquette, and etiquette is an important thing to learn because etiquette really is the standards for what is considered acceptable behavior in a place. Etiquette can and does vary from place to place. And for example, it is good etiquette in Ghana whenever you enter a space to greet people, right? You say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And people can get very offended in Ghana if you don't greet because it's part of our etiquette. However, in other parts of the world that I've been to, it's not part of their etiquette. And so, therefore, when you do greet someone that you don't know or have no reason to talk to, you might be seen as weird or strange because it's not part of their etiquette. So, we call this office etiquette because it can vary from place to place and it might differ from organization to organization. But in this presentation, I really want to walk you through some of how I hope you'll start thinking about reshaping your approach in the world of work. And why does it matter? It matters because people shape their perceptions about you based on your etiquette, right? Based on your behaviors. And the research says that it takes people 5 to 7 seconds to make a first impression about you. So it's things like what you're wearing, how you're walking, how you're speaking, etc. Every office wants a conducive environment for work to be done in. And so oftentimes when it comes to people's perceptions of you and your ability to be promoted or given or accorded a certain level of respect, it really does boil down to your etiquette, right? It also helps you to build trust with colleagues and employers and bosses and clients, etc. And it also enhances what we call executive presence. Now, some of you on the call today, I noticed were part of my Standout Women's Leadership Program last month. And because I did a masterclass called How to Command the Room, that, your executive presence speaks so much about you. So some of you on the call today are at early stages of your career. You probably are at an entry-level job. You just started. You're now figuring out your way. If you master these things now, it increases the likelihood that you'll be promoted much more quickly than other people. So I really wanted to set the stage by just talking about why this matters. It matters because of these reasons. It helps shape the perspectives and perceptions that people have about you. It helps create a positive environment. And for a lot of us, office etiquette starts with how we present ourselves. All right. Can you remind me in the chat box? I want to just make sure you were listening. How many seconds does it take people to make a first impression about you? I want to make sure you're listening. Let me know in the chat box. Right. All right. 5 to 7 seconds. It takes people between 5 and 7 seconds for people to make a first impression about you. Has it happened to you before? I know it's happened to me. I know some of you may think you're so holy that you won't admit this, but have you ever just met someone, they walk into a room and you're like, wow, who's that? And you think very positively towards them and you think, wow, I want to get to know them. They haven't opened their mouth to utter a word, but there's just something that makes you attracted to who they are. Yeah. All right. I see some of you saying in the chat box, yes, definitely. All right. Has the opposite also happened to you where someone enters a space and you're like, ah, who is this? Chale, chale, chale. For those of you outside of Ghana, chale means friend, like my friend, my friend. I don't want to have anything to do with you. They're just off-putting. There's just something, about them that you can't even put into words, but you just don't feel like you want them to be in your space, right? Thank you for those admitting in the chat box. Someone says when they first saw me on video. Interesting. Wait, when you first saw me on video, was it off-putting or it was like, yes, I want to know this person? I'd love for you to clarify that. So this, I would hate for you to waste time thinking whether this is good or whether it is bad. It simply is. It's human behavior. People can't control the fact that they make judgments. You're making judgments now, right? So let me know in the chat box. If you didn't know me before and you were just looking at me based on how I'm speaking, how I'm dressed, what I'm doing right now, what would be your first impressions of me, right? Thank you for clarifying in the chat box that it was a good first impression when you saw me on video. So let me know. Yeah, I see some words coming in. Someone says friendly. Yeah, what is it I'm doing that makes you think I'm friendly? Someone says confidence. Someone says I want your confidence. Open, confident, knowledgeable, professional, engaging. She okay, she's confident, love the vibe, approachable. Awesome. These are all positive things. Competent in your field. You give off good vibes. Very plush. I like that. You are classy and elegant. Wow. I was like, this kind of woman I want. First, okay, now it's coming in so fast I can hardly read. And because I don't even have my glasses on, I'm not really seeing it. Wow. Very polished and fashionable, peaceful aura. These are all positive things. So we're illustrating the point now that you, in a few seconds, have an opportunity to make a first impression with people that is positive. So when it comes to office etiquette, I really want you to think about your office as a stage where every day you're presenting yourself for critique. And what happens to a lot of us is that we are, some of you are giving me such kind words, you're distracting me. You're making my head swell. Um, some of us are in office environments that expect a certain level of productivity, of performance, but maybe we do that, but we don't look the part. That's why I wanted to start off with first impressions and your professional image. You really want to make sure that you're dressing appropriately for your industry. You're dressing appropriately for the type of work. A lot of organizations have dress codes, and we encourage you to follow the dress codes. But in the absence of a dress code, here is the hack that I have for you. Dress like your leadership. There's a saying very popular in America. If you dress like the boss and walk like the boss and talk like the boss, eventually you'll be the boss. For a lot of us, we are erring on the side of informality, but the rule is that we should err on the side of formality. So, as you think about how to put yourself together for work, as you think about how to stock up on your wardrobe, I really want you to think closely about the impression you want to create on a regular basis. I had the great honor of doing some work for this company. They asked me to coach one of their women. She kept being passed over for promotion. And do you know why? She said two things. The CEO told me in confidence that Honestly, the way she chews is so off-putting. I can't imagine having her sitting in front of one of my clients, right? And then secondly, she walks in the office like a giraffe. Her heels are so high, she's struggling to walk in it, and she's just, making like she doesn't give off a professional image, right? Someone says ouch in the chat box. And that's why I was saying that these are often unspoken rules. This man was sitting on this knowledge. He didn't tell her because it sounds offensive, right? It sounds like a thing that someone shouldn't have to say. And that's why etiquette matters. Did you know that in the world of work, stilettos were not made for the office? Any thin, tall heel that's beyond 4 inches is inappropriate for the workplace. Do you know that tight, form-fitting clothes also not meant for the office? So a lot of us make the mistake of allowing celebrity to influence how we dress instead of royalty. The rules of etiquette and protocol are informed by royalty. Can you put that in the chat box? I will dress like royalty. I will dress like royalty. If you're trying to give a good image, professional image, and have good first impressions, I really want to encourage you now to start mimicking the dress code of royalty. What does that mean? It means it's modest and conservative. It means it doesn't expose muscles and breast and butt cracks. Pardon my French. It's not exposing, it's not super tight. And so if in doubt, look at royalty and how they dress. It's usually modest and conservative. Some of us are very knowledgeable, but we dress like the women that we see in music videos. And I was coaching another woman who was saying, look, I can't stand it. The men in my office, they put their hand around my waist and they're always making suggestive comments. And I said, can I be honest? You are dressed very suggestively. She has a Nicki Minaj look and sexuality around her. Her makeup is like club makeup. It's not office makeup. So for a lot of us, our etiquette for the office needs to start with how we present ourselves, right? Practice good grooming. That means office environments, you want to be very sensitive about your smell, right? What are you using deodorant? Are you it's not uncommon to sweat because we live in a hot country for those of you who are in Ghana, or in Africa where the sun can be scorching at times. But it may mean that you need to invest in wipes to wipe yourself down before you get into the office, making sure that you can refresh yourself just to make sure that you are well groomed. Do you know that long fingernails, super long fingernails, inappropriate for the world of work? So usually you want to be dressed modestly and conservatively. It doesn't mean you cannot be fashionable, but it does mean you want to be dressed in a way that shows more seriousness than frivolity. Another piece of your office etiquette is your communication, making sure that you're speaking with confidence, speaking respectfully and deferentially. It's not uncommon that oftentimes when we are in an office for a long time, we stop being friendly or respectful. Instead of saying sir or madame, please and thank you, we say, hey, my friend, chale. And sometimes we start losing favor in our office settings because we've become very informal, which is why I personally don't encourage my team members or colleagues to call me auntie or, like anyone who works for me either calls me by my name or they call me boss because I'm not your auntie. Your auntie can't fire you. I can, right? So confidence in your body language means standing up straight, walking straight, etc. Arriving on time, delivering work on time is a big piece of your professional image as well. Some of us are just super unreliable. We say 3 o'clock, and 3 o'clock is when we start leaving home. And a lot of people are not fitting into the world of work well, simply because they have poor time habits. right? So your first impressions matter. Are you on time? And I like to say it this way to my polished professionals. I like to say early is on time is late, and late should be unheard of. Can you put that in the chat box? Early is on time is late, and late should be unheard of. This is the standard that we, as polished professionals, are encouraged to live up to. We really understand those that get ahead in the world of work are often those that are time conscious, are well groomed. In fact, there's research that shows that women that are promoted, they are often promoted. Women that wear makeup are promoted more than women that don't. I don't make the rules. I don't necessarily like it, but the studies do show that minimal makeup, like showing effort in how you've groomed yourself, really helps, especially for women. For men, smelling good helps. So those were kind of the two indicators on the male and female side, making sure you smell good at all times, because men often are the culprits in having poor physical hygiene and, stinking up an office space, especially most of our offices these days are enclosed with windows closed and air conditioning on. And there's nothing like air conditioning to elevate a stench. For some women, it's a weave or braids that haven't been well taken care of in a long time. So sometimes it's just the sweaty scent that kind of covers or hovers around people for having poor grooming in that sense. When it comes to your communications etiquette, typically we really want to use professional language. Now, a lot of us are guilty of what we call juvenile talk or juvenile speech patterns, which means I was like, and I went there and I was like, really? That's juvenile speaking. And I encourage all of my polished professionals, let's adopt clear communication. I've had to work on this a while, for a long while in my own career. So I highly recommend Toastmasters, which is an international public speaking organization. You can join as a member and start polishing on your communication style. I've also been working with speech coaches, doing one-on-one speech coaching to help me learn how to modulate my voice. Because I grew up in America, I was I spoke very quickly. So I had to learn how to enunciate my words, slow down my speed, and project my voice more in a manner that makes people want to listen. I grew up kind of tomboyish, so I kind of spoke like a man. I had a very deep, well, I still have a deep voice. In fact, people who call me on the phone these days still say, yes, sir, because they think they're speaking to a man. But I would encourage you to hone your voice. So I worked with a voice coach and someone who helped me really round off the edges of my voice, especially when it used to be much more raspy than I sound now. So I really want to encourage you to really think about how you communicate as well. We want to use professional language, which means, the emojis in a text message to a boss or a client, or an email to a boss or a client, you want to lay off of that. You want to write out the full meaning of things instead of using jargons or acronyms. You want to make sure that you also really, really, really be able to not err on the side of informality, right? So avoid interrupting people, especially when you're in a group, or if you have to interrupt, interject and say things like, excuse me, I beg your pardon, may I please interject? Just so that there's a decorum in how you communicate. For those of you who acknowledge the Bible as truth, I also feel like this has spiritual roots. The Bible says that let no corrupt communication come out of your mouth except that which will give grace to the hearer. So that really has become my standard for how I communicate, especially in official settings. They may be work colleagues, we might be friendly and all of that, but I really want to keep my communication professional. You want to also be culturally sensitive. So in my Polished Professionalism program, I do a deep dive on intercultural communication. But a few headlines. If you're dealing with people from the Western world, usually they don't like to get informal as quickly as we do in Ghana or in other parts of Africa. So, for example, to meet someone and say, "Are you married? Do you have kids?" Those are seen as very personal questions, right? So, in your communication, you might want to be sensitive to the cultural appropriateness of the things that you're saying. So, for example, I have a client who, she said, "I thought it was the witches and wizards in my village that had sabotaged this contract, but it was what I said to this woman." What did she say? She told this American client that she had put on, which in Ghana means you put on weight. And in old school Ghana, that's actually a compliment. Like, wow, you're not suffering, you're eating well, you're looking well, right? But she cut off a potential business opportunity because she said something that was not culturally sensitive, right? So cultural sensitivity is important. And I really want you to err on the side of formality. Not all jokes and humor is the same around the world. So some things that you may laugh at in your country may not necessarily be appropriate in the country of the person you're speaking to. So I really, really want you to heighten your antennas when it comes to that. Okay. So we talked about your image, your presentation, your look, and then now we're talking about your communication etiquette. And I hope this is helpful. In terms of the workplace conduct, if you are in an open office where people don't have their individual offices and there's a general space, I want to encourage you, invest in headphones, invest in your electronic devices are considered personal. Can you write that in the chat box? All of my electronic devices are considered personal. So therefore, I shouldn't be able to hear what you're listening to. Music played loudly or audibly in a shared workspace is bad etiquette. All electronic devices are considered personal. Radio, telephone, laptop, computer, all of that is considered a personal device, which means that nobody else should be able to hear what you're doing. Nobody else should be able, in fact, it is actually considered the right etiquette to excuse yourself to speak on your phone because it's considered a personal device. In Ghana, we abuse this. I see people in the middle of a meeting pick up a call and say hello, and they're in the middle of a, a public event. It's bad etiquette. So in the workplace, especially, you want to respect shared places and shared resources. And if possible, excuse yourself to use your device where possible. Otherwise, you plug in so that at least you minimize the amount of interference it has to other people. RSVP for meetings, please. From henceforth, now and forevermore, let people know the status of your participation. And I know in this part of the world, we don't take this as seriously as most. But if you are sent a meeting invite, acknowledge it with a yes, I'm coming or no, I'm not. A lot of us may not be very conversant with how to use like the calendar invites, etc., like that. But I really want to encourage you, be the kind of person who's a polished professional, who manages their virtual schedule with excellence and coordinates everything accordingly. Now that the world of work is becoming more global, and especially after COVID, where everything and so many other things are being done online. Like, for example, we wouldn't be having this virtual masterclass if we didn't have these virtual tools. But you may have noticed I shared with you a link for you to register, and then I could see who's all registered to come. And then you received an invite for you to plug the link and join me today, right? But if I had sent you the invite directly and with a meeting invite to your virtual calendar, it's considered good etiquette to accept or decline the meeting just so that people know whether to expect you. And if you are meant to join a meeting, you need to join punctually. So I have an alarm that goes off on my calendar 10 minutes to a meeting just to avoid being late. I log in early, and I saw many of you logged in early for today's call. So clap for yourselves if you did that. That's good etiquette, right? So be punctual for meetings, even if they're virtual, right? Be punctual. People shouldn't have to call you or text you. And if you notice that you are running late, you have to notify in advance. So regrettably, I'm running a few minutes late. I'll join in 10 minutes late, etc. That's good workplace conduct, workplace etiquette, especially if you are a boss and you have a meeting with a boss should never ever wait on a subordinate. Can you put that in the chat box? It is poor etiquette. So sometimes in the workplace, you're just like, this person is the boss's favorite. If you unpack why they are the boss's favorite, likely they're doing these things I'm talking about. They show up on time, they take care of things, they groom themselves well. That happened to me. I remember when I was probably in my late 20s, I entered into my first managerial role. And it was in a company where people had been working there for between 10 and 15 years before I joined. But within the first year, my boss wanted to travel with me. My boss wanted me to join her for important meetings. People said, this woman has gone to do juju on the boss. Ah, do you know what I was doing? My quote unquote juju was simply good etiquette. I understand business protocol. I understood how to present myself. I understood how to put my best foot forward. I would never keep my boss waiting. I would never, if I have a meeting, I would be there before her. If she's asked me to meet her somewhere for a meeting, I will get there first. I will pick a table. Because these things differentiated me from the pack. So when it came for international travel, she said, I want Yawa on this trip. People would not understand. When it came for high-level guests, she wants Yawa in the meeting. And people were wondering, I'm sure if I was working for a man, they would have felt, oh my goodness, this woman is sleeping with the boss. But thankfully, it was a woman. So they said, this woman has gone to do juju. My only juju was I understood workplace etiquette and protocol. So, anytime you have the opportunity to work for a superior, you never keep them waiting. Do your work with excellence, show up on time, and maintain a very good personal hygiene and personal image, right? Hone your communication styles as well. Someone's asking, how do you manage jealousy as a result of very good etiquette? It comes with the territory. I teach something we call adaptive leadership. And adaptive leadership, here's the premise. Any any advancement has losses. It comes with the territory. When you do the right thing and you begin to advance, people will be jealous. And your job is to manage how you react to people's jealousy. Don't get sucked in to people's opinions and just keep doing the right thing so that you can keep moving forward, right? So I really want to encourage you to really think about how do you handle. There's a really good book called Managing Up. Maybe you'll write that down and look for it online. And I think I recommend it a lot to many of the women that and young men, increasingly young men as well, that I mentor or coach. If you're in my Elevate School community, I'll post a link after today's session so that you can see that is a great resource for managing upwards. Everyone needs three circles. This is my theory. If you're going to be successful, you need a circle of peers, you need a circle of people behind you, but you need that circle ahead of you to pull you up. And so part of why understanding these etiquettes are important is that it really helps those ahead of you want to pull you up, especially if, I have a coaching client who is near retirement. Most of my one-on-one executive coaching clients are actually older than me. And do you know what she said to me 2 days ago? We had a session. She said, Yawa, I have enjoyed working with you. I've worked for 30 something years, almost as long as I've been alive. I'm in my 40s. So this woman she started her career before okay, well, I was born, but I was a child when she started her career. But now I'm sitting here as her executive coach. And she told me these two things. She said, you have a good presence. Like you don't you know when to come in, you know when to pull back, you know when to speak. And you even the critique that you give me, you give it to me in such a way that I can receive it. These are some of the things I learned from reading books like Managing Up. Okay. So I really want to encourage you to get that as a resource, especially for those of you who may find yourself in situations like I am, where I'm serving people who are older than me, and I needed to cue into that mindset of people who are superior. But she's my coaching client, and she boldly, tells people that my executive coach is here. And then I walk in the room and people are like, wow, this girl is your coach? But I'm creating value, and partly because I've got this good practices of etiquette supporting how I show up. Okay. It is inevitable to be in a workplace or work environment and not have some conflict because workplaces are made of people and people have different priorities. Sometimes we compete for resources, we compete for attention, we compete for visibility, and that's where the jealousy comes in. That's where the issues come in, and it just often it's not uncommon for there to be conflict. The way you address and show up when there is conflict tells so much about your etiquette, your maturity, and your being able to lift, right? I really want you to, from henceforth, now and forevermore, to fight your battles with class. I really want you to, in fact, put that in the chat box. I will fight my battles with class. So I'm not saying never argue or never state your point of view, but it is good etiquette to always be deferential and respectful and not whiny. This is what I see a lot of us make mistakes about. Okay. We become whiny, complaining, and then we pull back on our support to the team or the organization because we're offended. So to fight your battles with class means a couple of things. It means that when there is a disagreement, you want to step back first. You don't want to be quick to complain or whine. You want to talk about what's wrong in the light of solutions. So, number one, you want to make sure that all of your advocacy for yourself in the world of work or in a working relationship is done through the lens of creating value. Okay. So, for example, if I'm offended by something you said in the meeting, said, I may approach, I will first of all not speak when I'm angry. I'll wait to calm down and then say, Kofi, would you have a few minutes to speak today? There's something I'd like to speak to you about. And I will state the behavior, state what was done that hurt me or I'd like to see different, and offer a solution. So, Kofi, in the meeting that we had the other day, when you said that you had never heard, this was the first you were hearing of this, I felt very surprised and also a little offended because we had a meeting about this last week and I felt embarrassed, right? So, in the future, please do not misrepresent me like that when we're in the team meetings. So, I've stated the behavior, I've stated what I'd like to see different, and I've stated how I felt, but I spoke it respectfully. Oftentimes, we let our emotions take out all the formality, all of the respectability out of how we approach conflict. So we will fight with class. The second part of fighting with class means documenting and writing, putting things in writing first. Oftentimes, especially I think as women, we can get hyper emotional. Write down what the issues are, organize what you're going to say, and have some talking points for when you're approaching a conflict. So, thank you for making time for us to talk about this. I really just wanted to go, I hope you don't mind. I wrote it down so I don't forget any of the things that I wanted to discuss. This is good if it's a boss with a subordinate, but also a subordinate with a boss. And if you read the book Managing Up, you'll get more tactical on this because the world of work will be a field where you will get offense, and offense leads to conflict. And conflict, if not resolved professionally, can harm your ability to rise in your career. So I really want you to think about, how do I argue with class? And to do that with class, you've got to build some vocabulary. There's a training that I do called assertiveness training. And in assertiveness, the rule of thumb is we want to say things directly, but also cordially. So, no one should leave a conversation without knowing what you were really talking about. And some around in circles. We're so indirect, Ghana. We don't like to tell people things directly. We talk to third parties, and we don't like to talk to people directly. But in what is considered world class standard of conflict resolution, you discuss the issue with the person that you have the issue with. So I want you to avoid third party gossip. Can you write that in the chat box? Oh, it's the same in Zambia. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, avoid third-party gossip. Henceforth and forevermore, I will avoid third-party gossip. Write that in the chat box. I want everyone here. I have a rule, and I call it, I am loyal to. All right. Thank you for your patience. I lost my connection. Can I be heard? Can people let me know in the chat box if I can be heard? All right, thank you. Thank you for confirming. So I was talking about conflict in the workplace, and oftentimes conflicts in the workplace emerge simply because there are human beings in the world of work. And anytime there are human beings in the world of work, you really want to be prepared for conflict, and you want to fight with class. So that's why I asked you earlier to type in the chat box that I will fight with class. And by doing so, I want you to make sure that you're doing a couple of things. Number one, don't speak when you're angry. My father used to tell us when we were young that when you speak when you are angry, you will make the best speech you will ever regret. So don't speak when you're angry. Wait to calm down. If it's helpful, write out what is the cause of your anger, offense, or issue. Not everything we're angry about deserves a complaint. Make sure that if you're complaining about something, you are offering a solution. Oftentimes, that's what happens to a lot of us young people. We just like to whine and complain about things that are wrong, things that we don't like, but we don't offer solutions, right? And be prepared that often things that you complain about won't be changed. So the etiquette that I'm talking about in today's presentation is really in how you address grievances. So I was saying that there's what we call assertiveness, and assertiveness really means speaking to people in a way that's direct, but at the same time cordial. So for example, someone's asking in the chat box if someone's gaslighting you, etc. You use words like respectfully. I disagree with your opinion on this matter, and I'd like to share with you my perspective on this issue. So an issue that came up when I was a young manager, for example, was one of our senior So the company that I worked for had lots of men that were older, old enough to be my father or uncle. And one woman staff member was walking by, and one of these older staff members said something, called her a small girl or something like that. And I said, respectfully, you cannot talk to your colleague this way. She is a worker here just like you. And that type of talk creates an environment that is hostile, and I cannot preside over such a hostile environment. This is unacceptable. Let this be the last time you speak to someone this way. Then I followed up with an email and wrote him as discussed. This thing that you did to so and so is unacceptable. I am writing this in your folder. Consider this your warning. I had to state what was wrong. I did it in a respectful way because I also live in a cultural context where to him, I'm a small girl too. I was in my late 20s, and at the time he was in his 50s, right? So conflicts will emerge. I want to give you tools to handle it with good etiquette, which means you want to use good language. You want to use the format of assertiveness, speaking directly, but at the same time cordially, but unequivocably, if I've said the word right, like no uncertain terms when someone leaves that conversation that this is what you meant. And practicing that with your peers makes it easier to practice that with higher ups so that you don't take your peers for granted. Sometimes we see our peers every day, we sit by them every day, or that we don't respond to their phone calls. When was the last time you said, I'm sorry for not picking your call? May I please call you back? I text peers just the same as I would text a superior that regrettably I was unavailable to speak. May I please call you back? So the etiquette, I don't want you to lose the lesson. I can't go into specific scenarios in each person's life, but the etiquette is that you want to address conflicts directly but cordially. Is this understood? All right, I see a few more comments in the chat box. Um, yeah, okay, good understanding. So I'm going to reopen my slide deck and hope that we no longer have internet challenges. I see we've got a full house as well, which is wonderful. So you want to show respect to shared spaces. You want to handle your disagreements respectfully. You want to give credit where credit is due. Do you know giving credit to people is also a way to build your profile? You want to be seen as an encourager. You want to be seen as the kind of person that gives people their props, gives them their flowers, as they say, as the young people like to say, right? So thank you. You want to say thank you. You want to say please. You want to say things like, wow, I really like what you said in the meeting. And I really would encourage you to avoid giving compliments on people's appearances and do more compliments on what people do. Do you see the difference? If I'm saying, wow, you look handsome or beautiful every day, that's my go-to. And I find that in Ghana, that's our go-to. We like to break the ice with a comment on appearance. Oh, you look very nice in this shirt, or you look very nice in that dress. You know, it can be a double-edged sword, especially when it's between male and female. Compliment what someone did. I like the report that you wrote. It was very well done. Or I really like, what you and the team did with this event the other day. So the more polished professionals you find will do compliments on things done as opposed to appearance. Okay? Because sometimes it can be so misconstrued, especially because workplace romance is real. It's not uncommon that just as how it's inevitable that there will be conflict, it's also inevitable that there might be romantic sparks flying between colleagues, right? In fact, many people marry their colleagues because oftentimes we spend most of our waking hours at work. So the etiquette as well, that's part of why the etiquette around compliments is really to give compliments about work, quality of work, as opposed to appearance. Okay, great. Is this helpful? I hope you're finding all of these tips. I tried to mash together some of the best tips that I thought would be meaningful to everyone. Thank you for those giving me feedback in the chat box. All right. So now let's think about your business protocol. Now, you may hear the word etiquette and protocol being used interchangeably. There's a bit of a difference. So when we say etiquette, it can and does differ from place to place. When we talk about protocol, it's really the rule, right? So this is the rule, unchanging, no matter where we go, there's a protocol. So for example, most countries have what they call the Department of State Protocol, right? And what do those departments do? They handle the state visits. If there's a high-ranking delegation or a head of state for another country coming to this country, there's a protocol for how that's done. It's all based on rank and status. So, you understanding rank, status, titles, introductions of self and others is another way to distinguish yourself in terms of your personal professionalism, right? So, the way you introduce people. So, for example, the rule is that the person of higher authority always receives the person of lower authority. And it's just a simple tweak in how you introduce. So if I am the person of great authority and you're introducing someone, you're introducing that person to me, not me to them. So for example, and the person of greater authority's name is always mentioned first. So you would say, Miss Hansen-Quao, it's a pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Kofi Jantwa, right? So you always mention the person who's of greater authority first, and you present the lower authority to them, not vice versa. So that's one rule of protocol that's unchanging. There's also a protocol for how you give and receive a business card. So I know we're in this modern age where a lot of people don't really invest in business cards anymore. You go to conferences and people do like a QR code, take my QR code, etc. I encourage everyone who does my Polished Professionalism course to invest in business cards, especially for the older people that you'll be meeting who don't know anything about these QR codes or are uninterested, right? To just have a way for people to have a small card that has your information. And a business card is exchanged upon request. A lot of people just go around just handing out, making it rain, make it rain with your business cards. That's inappropriate. So usually at the end of a conversation, you might say, I would welcome the opportunity to stay in touch with you. May I please have your business card? And someone gives you their business card, or vice versa. When you are dealing with someone of higher rank, do not assume that you will continue your conversation with them. So, for example, a few months ago, I was in Namibia for the inauguration of the first woman president, and she chose a female to be her vice president. Oh, it was amazing. Anyway, at that event, I met the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. We had a good conversation at this dinner event, and I wanted to stay in touch. With whom in your office may I connect with? Or with whom in your office may I continue this conversation with? Because she had invited me to an event and some other things. And so when you're dealing with someone of high rank and high authority who is staffed, you don't ask for their card. You may say, with whom in your office may I follow up with, or with whom in your office may I correspond? That is a way of showing deference and respect, and also a way of showing your own maturity, that most of these people are busy. Their schedules are managed by third parties. So when I said that, she said, oh, actually, let me give you my cell phone. And so I took her cell phone so that we could connect personally because she was inviting me personally. It wasn't something official. Do you understand? So protocol means an understanding of hierarchy, understanding of rank and status, and understanding what to do with that. So it influences your introductions. It influences how you exchange business cards. It also influences how you seat. Did you know that there's a protocol for how to sit? Sometimes you go to an event and you take a seat that isn't actually meant for you. Has that happened to you before? That's happened to me several times. So I really, really want to encourage you to, for someone who's asking about companies wanting to use a QR code instead of printed cards, I like to encourage people to just sit in the driver's seat of their own career and do what's good for them. So I print my own cards. Even when I work for companies, I print my own cards that have my personal information. So I have a business card that has my photo and it's double-sided. So one side is my information for Leading Ladies Network. On the other side is my information for my HQ Consulting, my consulting company. Because some people I meet, it has nothing to do with the client that I'm working for at that time. So again, if you want to understand that people at a certain rank and status probably are not going to take out their phone and scan your QR code. They won't. It's better to just have a card. It's better to just have a way make it easy for them or their staff to follow up with you. All right. So you also want to understand seating protocol. The rule of thumb is that the most important person always sits to the right of the host. So if you go to an event, a dinner, whatever corporate event, and you see, there are seats and there are no names of who sits where, do not sit to the right of the host because that seat is often always reserved for the most important guest of honor. Okay. So protocol, these are just some of the basic tips I wanted to give just so that you understand. So that, for example, if you're in a team meeting, you always want to make sure that you are sitting in the right place. You're not taking the seat that is reserved for your leader, your team lead, your CEO, etc. As the case may be. So we had a few weeks ago this breakfast event, and someone sat in the chair that we were reserving for our guest of honor that day. And so I had the displeasure of leaning over, whispering in her ear, cordially but very directly that regrettably, I'm going to have to ask you to leave this table and sit over there because you're sitting in our guest of honor's chair. And she said, "Oh my goodness." But if she understood basic protocol, she could have read the room on her own and saw that, oh, this is where, Yawa is seated. So this is likely where the guest of honor is seated. So these are just little tips on protocol. I know my focus for today is on etiquette, but I thought I'd shared some of this with you because many of you are networking all the time. You're going to events and conferences, you're meeting people, you're being introduced. And again, if you don't accept the Bible as truth, I want to bring in another Bible reference where I think it was the Apostle Paul who said, I know how to abase and I know how to abound. Look, I'm not always polished and fancy looking all the time. I know how to wash my hands, tie my hair, eat with my hands. That's an etiquette too. So this is not to get you to, you know, be like, have you ever seen this British series? Um, the woman, I think it's called Keeping Up Appearances. And the woman, my name is Hyacinth Bouquet, and her last name is spelled Bucket. But she was being extra trying to pretend to be posh in a very, you know, lowbrow environment, and she was just looking excessively extra. So that's not the goal of this. I don't want you to be oh, you guys know who this is. I see you all writing Mrs. Bouquet, Mrs. Bucket. So you know who I'm talking about. So keeping up appearances, if you don't know what it is, you might Google and watch a few videos on YouTube, but it was this very funny British sitcom that kind of caricature, she became a caricature of like being excessive. So the goal of this is to help you put your best foot forward everywhere you go, right? You want to be able to know when to abase and when to abound. So for example, if you go to greet the Asante Hene, who's one of the local chiefs in Ghana, one of the biggest of the Ashanti Kingdom, there's an etiquette for how you approach, and they will teach you and they will tell you that, look, if you're a woman, you can't go with something sleeveless. I remember going to Italy, the Sistine Chapel, and you couldn't go sleeveless into the Sistine Chapel because this is part of the Vatican and they have certain standards. So the goal of this is to help you be aware that certain protocols exist and to respect them wherever you go. Okay? Awesome. So follow your meeting protocols. I talked about that a bit. We're doing lots of virtual meetings these days. So your ability so for example, I'm on video with you. So I fixed my face before this call to try and look at least, like I'm taking this seriously. I'm wearing a business dress. I'm seated in my home office. I'm working from home today, so I've got my home office. I position myself where there's good lighting so you can see my face, where, a sensible enough backdrop, it's my bookcase behind me. You really want to think about, putting your best foot forward, especially when you're working, remotely or on a from home, like I do a lot. My kids are pretty young, so I try to work from home as often as I can. And sometimes it's the little things like making sure you can be heard, you have visibility. That's why when people were texting a few moments ago that my sound wasn't great, I knew I needed to shift to a different network. I live near the mountains in Ghana, so sometimes the weather affects our connectivity. So we have got like 3 or 4 backup internets just for that reason. So this one wasn't working. I switched off and connected to another one because you want to make sure you're heard and seen. That's good etiquette. You also want to make sure, especially if you are dealing with people from different time zones, you're scheduling meetings at a respectable enough time zone for people so that people don't have to necessarily log on at ungodly hours their time. So those are some of the things I'd love for you to keep in mind. When you have an important meeting, even when it's not required, I would encourage you to get on video. It changes the game. Getting on video helps you to show closeness, awareness, etc., and helps people connect with you on a deeper level. So I really want to encourage you, where possible, be on video. If it doesn't affect your bandwidth or your connectivity, be on video, especially when it's an important meeting. I remember in my previous job, whenever I have a finance committee meeting, no matter where I am, I will get on video. I will dress up my face. I will get on video because I'm talking about money, and I want to build trust with my board of directors. So I get on video and I look in the camera, smile, talk to the numbers, answer the questions, looking people in the face because this is a finance committee meeting and I'm talking about money and I want to bolster trust. So getting on video and being camera ready is an important part of the etiquette I want you to bring in to how you handle virtual meetings, making sure you've got good lighting, good sound. You join the meeting promptly on at the time it's meant to start or early, because as we said before, early is what? On time. On time is what? It's late. And late should be what? Unheard of. Great. All right. I know I talked office etiquette, but I didn't want to leave this presentation without a few pointers on dining etiquette because a lot of business meetings are now happening over meals. Have you ever been invited to a business lunch or business dinner, a soiree, something? A client invites you to lunch, whatever the case. You really, really have to understand some dining etiquette. So I told you 2 days ago, I went to one of my executive coaching clients. This session was at her house. You never go to a meal at a person's house empty-handed. So on my way, this is my client, but we're doing this session in her house. So on my way there, I picked up some food, picked up some salads, some pies, some juices and things, and arrived with a platter of things, just as a thing to come with, right? So usually the rule of thumb is that if someone invites you to their home, you do not come empty-handed. Maybe a drink, a bottle of something, a dessert, a potted plant. And these are some of the etiquettes that aren't often taught or spoken about. In fact, in Ghana, we come to your place empty-handed and expect to leave your place with something, especially if you're dealing with people in the global world of business. It really is a sign of good etiquette not to arrive at a person's home empty-handed. Okay? The rule of thumb for dining is that the host takes the lead, which means the dinner or the meal only commences when the host says so. So those of us who get to the table then immediately start eating or taking the bread and butter and things like that, you wait. The only exception is water or wine. So if there's a drink, right? But the actual eating of food only starts when the host asks us to commence. There's a rule of thumb that in business dining, you are there to meet, not to eat. Can you put that in the chat box? I am here to meet, not to eat. I am here to meet, not to eat. I am here to meet, not to eat. I make a song out of things so that it sticks in my head, right? At Protocol School of Washington, they taught us never go to an event hungry because it's hard to, be engaged in good conversation when you're actually starving. What happens when you're starving? You put your head to the plate and you eat fast and you're chopping and you're likely to put a mountain of food on your plate, and all of these things steal away from a positive first impression. So in business dining, you are there to meet, not to eat, which means you err on the side of conservatism. There must never be a mountain of food on your plate. You eat in moderation, you chew slowly, you acknowledge the people around you. One never reaches over someone else to get something. You ask for things to be passed to you. And I do a deep dive in my Polish professionalism course on dining. I teach American style, continental style, and Asian style dining because honestly, this right here is the bane of many of our professional increases. Many of us aren't being promoted because when it mattered the most, they saw bad behavior at a dining table. In fact, a lot of HR books now are saying you can learn everything you need to learn about a person just by watching how they eat. So if somebody were watching you, would they see CEO material? Or would they see, oh my goodness, I can't take her anywhere material, right? Like I said, one of my clients was saying of one of their staff that she's good, and we know she's ready for promotion, but we don't like how she chews. And they said she chews gum all the time. Please write this in the chat box and henceforth, now and forevermore. Treat gum as a dental instrument. Do you know that's what gum is? Gum was created to be chewed after a meal, right? To take particles of food from between your teeth. That was how gum was created. Gum was not made to be chewed in public. Treat gum like a toothbrush or a dental floss. Gum should not be eaten in public, especially when you're in a meeting, when you're in a formal event, right? Treat gum as a dental instrument. You would never brush your teeth at a dining table, would you? Then why would you chew gum there? You would never brush your teeth if you're sat in a conference. Why would you chew gum there? A lot of people say, oh, I need the gum because it freshens my breath. Use a mint, keep it under your tongue, right? But never be seen chewing gum in public. Take the gum after dining in the washroom, chew it to get pieces out of your mouth, or take a toothpick. A toothpick is also meant to be used in private, never at a dining table. So treat gum and toothpicks just as you would a toothbrush, right? Someone says she uses gum to stay awake. My friend, just psych yourself, huh? Stand up if you must. Stand in the corner of the room. Stretch your legs. Sometimes I go to the washroom and just jump up and down 50 times to pump my blood again, then I go back into a meeting, right? It's been one of the great. I used to love gum. I used to spend the whole day chewing gum. I could chew the gum all day. This right here, I didn't realize. So have you ever like just put your hand on your head like, oh my God, I have sinned. I have fallen short of the glory of God. These are some of the things we don't realize. So you are advised and admonished to please understand you're there to meet, not to eat. When you have the opportunity to be in a buffet line, it's good etiquette to talk to people while you're waiting to be served, not while you're serving. So you don't talk over the buffet food, but if you're in the line, make polite conversation. Avoid controversial topics, especially at a dining table. One must never talk about health issues. I just had surgery, blah, 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 blah. We don't talk about toilet matters. When you need to excuse yourself from the table, we don't need to know where you're going. So I got to go to the toilet. I got to go to the bathroom. Just say, excuse me, and then excuse yourself. Okay. So these are some basic dining etiquette tips I wanted to offer just so that you can put your best foot forward, especially if you're in a business meeting that serves food. All right. I think I've talked about virtual meeting etiquette, but this is just, again, a refresher, join on time, test out your technology. So before today's call, I was on about 20 minutes before to test the sound and all of that, make sure my background, my lighting, and all of that was well. If you're hosting the meeting, the extra burden is on you. I saw people entering the waiting room. I was setting all of my admin tools to mute people so that people wouldn't disturb the call when they join. I removed the waiting room when it was 12 o'clock on the dot so that I won't be distracted. When you are a meeting host, it's a big responsibility, right? When you're meeting guests, you want to make sure that you do same. You pick a good background, make sure your audio is good, make sure you're in a good position. If you're joining late, you let the meeting host know. Mute when you're not speaking. Sometimes if your meeting host doesn't do the settings well, you enter and then we can hear all your conversations. We can see things we shouldn't see. So dress professionally, even if it's online. Sometimes when I have a really important meeting online, I dress and I spray myself with my perfume as if I was right there with them. My husband says, "Wow, this is extra." I was like, "No, it puts me in the mood. Like I'm taking this seriously." So I do everything as if I was meeting the person in person, right? So dress professionally, even if it's online. Oh, so I'm not the only one who sprays myself. I see. Awesome. So, I really want you all to become polished professionals. And for me, I'm on a personal mission to train millions and millions of people on what this means because a lot of us, it's not that we're not technically smart, it's not that we don't know things, it's that we just are breaking the unspoken rules. And I really, really want people to win. And I've seen the difference it's made in my own life, professionally and personally and economically. Because now I was telling a friend the other day, I don't think I'm saying new things, but I look better, I present myself better, I have a polish about me, and it's just making people want to pay me to do things. So I really, for those who are business owners who think, oh, Charlie, I don't have to take this seriously, especially for those of you who are in tech, which is by nature a very informal type of industry, I really wanted you to take these to heart because it can really help you differentiate yourself. Because oftentimes the people with money, the people who can invest in your business or in your enterprise or could, whisper to someone to help you elevate to a new level, they will care about these things. And these unspoken rules may be excluding you from your next level. So please note that small details make a big difference. If you're consistent with these types of tips, it helps build your credibility. And please understand that it's a lifelong skill. It pays dividends way beyond your degree. Because look, we all now have Chat GPT. We've got all of these AI tools, but what will never be replaced is human connection. And etiquette is really about fostering deeper human connection. So if you index on this, it will make a difference. So thank you again for joining me for this free masterclass. Thank you for letting me, share with you what I know. I really want to encourage you to ask questions. If there are questions or comments now, I'll be happy to take them in the chat box. Um, Let me see. All right. Thank you. Thank you for the hand claps. You're making me feel very special. Let me see. Yeah, let me stop sharing and come back to plenary. All right. Any questions in the chat box? Was this useful? Are these tips that you can apply right now? I really have, look, I teach this course over 2 or 3 days because there's so much to learn. I've just scratched the surface for you. If you're interested in attending one of my full classes, now that we've got your information, I'll email when we schedule our next class. But this body of knowledge is so impactful. And studying at the Protocol School of Washington to get certified to teach it was such a good investment because I've had the great honor of speaking to so many audiences, so many professionals from all over the world, helping them to also acquire the polish of world-class professionals. So let me see. All right. I want to meet you when I return from the UK. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Someone is asking, does it make a difference with a polished professional in an unwashed car? Oh, wow. Just like the hygiene for personal, everything about you needs to reflect. So, one of my coaches said this to me Oh, it wasn't recently. Actually, it was a few years ago. She said, if your organization or your business was a person, what would they look like? That's what you should be looking like. That's what your car should look like. That's what everything about you should look like. And that really helped me because I was talking about leadership and all of that, but I couldn't care less about how I looked. I couldn't care less about because I grew up tomboyish, sporty, I just couldn't care. And all of this matters. So even your business cards, keep your business card in a business card case so that the edges don't get frayed. It doesn't look unkempt. It doesn't have smudges and oil and print. And like everything about you should reflect that polish professionalism. Your writing instruments, invest in a good pen and a journal when you go to meetings. You're not writing on pieces of paper or on the back of a sheet. You've got a journal where you write your things. All of these are signifiers that, this person cares. This person pays attention, right? So I really, really want to encourage you to treat every part of you that is seen as if it was on a stage. That I drove up today, I woke up today, I walked in today, my shoes, my belt, my trousers, my dress, my shirt, my hair, my everything. Is it communicating a polished professionalism or not? All right. Can I get the author of the book Managing Up? Please Google it. I don't remember who wrote it, but it's a very popular book. So please Google talking about political issues in work setting. How can we deal with such? I'm not talking workplace politics here because don't get me started. But if you join my school community, I have a folder. You'll have to pay to access it though. I taught a class called Understanding You, Your Workplace, and Its Politics. If you want to buy that, you can just buy the class. I've got it on my school community for purchase. Um, would you encourage speaking vernacular at the workplace? I personally don't, and here's why. The official language of Ghana is English, and the organization and all of that is deemed professional. But I also know that in some work settings, you're dealing with staff of a different level who may not fully understand English. So I say it depends. And like when in doubt, mirror the behavior of your leadership. But I really encourage people I coach try to avoid that because it's also part of that breeding of familiarity that often erodes the sense of decorum that one should have in a workplace. But, we live in a country, at least I live in a country that has over 49 different languages. And, the government chose English as the official language. So, I over-index on English and, I also don't understand much of our local language. I'm good. I understand Tree, I understand Ga and Ewe a bit. So, maybe I'm different because of my multicultural upbringing, but you want to err on the side of formality. If you can speak your local languages and still be formal and courteous and assertive in doing so. And if it doesn't violate the expectation of your work leadership, then I think it's fine. All right, I see more questions. Let me see. All right. Uh, Oh, this Gen Z thing, long acrylic nails typing on a phone, very distracting. Yeah, I don't recommend it. If you're gonna do nails for work, let it be short. This is even a bit grown. If you can see my nails, these have grown a bit, but like I have them much shorter. Because again, you want to choose colors that are nude or it doesn't attract too much attention to you. And a lot of us, we let celebrity influence how we dress to work instead of royalty. So just if in doubt, Google Kate Middleton and look at how she's usually dressed when she's in a formal event and things like that. You're not going to see her boobs. You're not going to see, she will look beautiful and presentable. Her makeup will be understated. Her shoes and, nails, you probably won't see much nail color anyway. So I just really want to encourage you to let your wardrobe be informed more by royalty than celebrity. All right, let me see. I think I'm seeing lots of comments come in, so I may have missed a few. All right. How do I address a meeting with different social classes at a virtual and in-person meeting? So it depends. All right. Apologies and thank you again for your patience. My internet issues persist. I don't know if I no longer can see it in the chat. But anyway, we were wrapping up. But if there are other questions that you would like, okay. How do you deal with people thinking you're disrespectful in a Ghanaian setting when you're only trying to make second nature universal work etiquette? I personally believe that could be people who really don't approve your elevation. If you joined my school committee, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, I posted a link to an audiobook that I think will help you deal with that. Because oftentimes when you're elevating, there will be so much start to feel like you think you're better than them. You're making choices different. That's why I'm too known. I'm being, we all went to the same school together. Why am I being? But now some of these same friends are coming back to me for advice. In fact, a few of them have hired me to coach them. See that wow is elevating in a way that I've been able really want to encourage you. If these are people who are your superiors as feedback and learn how to base when you're in certain scenarios. So for example, to some people and she gave me some feedback. She said they thought you were a bit much because I unsure of themselves. And these are high powerful people. So she just told me when I'm around them, please tone a bit. I said tone down. So she gave me some tips around them so that I don't alienate them because you want to come across as so overly pompous and you don't want to be a high bouquet. You don't want to bouquet. Oh, Bucket. We want you accessible, down to earth, but when it matters, you know what to do. My post a few weeks ago, embarrassed to have finger snapped, and I stopped finger snapping. I stopped doing anything that wasn't a proper hand. I said, I don't care if you think I'm way or think I'm too known or whatever, but I do want to be that. So sometimes you want to show an appreciation for your local culture and custom. Okay, I'm back. You don't want that to rob you from the opportunity to elevate the right spaces because when it matters the most, you want to always put your best foot forward. Okay, that's what I would recommend. Someone is asking, what is the appropriate response to a superior who hasn't invested in etiquette, causing clients to think the subordinate is the superior? You can't help that. You can't stop being you just because you can't stop being you just because your superior hasn't invested. You want to, this is about, I want to encourage you to etiquette and protocol is your behavior, your responses. This isn't about judging other people. This isn't about trying to and that's why we call it unspoken rules. And they're not spoken for a reason. To say them makes people feel bad. To say them makes people feel, they missed something. The truth is, many of us have missed, learning type of thing enables us to stand out. So I don't want you to have attended this class, go out and be telling people, hey, don't you know this isn't the right way to do this? This is for you. Be selfish with this. This is for you. All right. So don't make it your problem, is what I would recommend. All right. Well, okay. Your relationship with your boss when he feels a bit intimidated by who you are. All right. Yeah, I would say the same answer, to feedback. So for example, maybe a conversation, say, maybe, the, dear sir, opportunity to you about something that's been bothering me. You know, I I feel that there's a tension. Am I doing something that I should stop doing? I would like to if I'm missing it or if there is some sort of um that I'm doing, could you kindly give me feedback on it? Because I really value working with you and under you, and I really want to put this forward. My best foot is I would welcome feedback. So that might be something I suggest you do, especially if they communicate you see from they're sidelining you, they're not giving out things to do, or you might want. All right. Oh, okay. Please the link. Um, with the war in my school committee. So if you join that, there's a post that has it. You'll find it. Or if you can find it on YouTube, audiobook. That's Everyone. Uh, Um, Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry, my internet has been very unreliable on my cell phone now, as you can probably tell. But I appreciate you joining this masterclass. Appreciate your patience with my internet challenges. I live so close to the Abri Mountains, but the downside is that sometimes it affects our connectivity, especially when there is today. So thank you for your patience. I hope I've answered all the questions in the chat box. I don't know, because I'm logged on a different device, I'm on my phone now. I don't actually see any additional or any. So if you did post a question, off, repost it, and I'll be happy to answer. Or if you feel satisfied, feel free to drop off as well. I know I've had you on this line for a while, but I hope this presentation has given you a good appreciation of the the etiquettes and protocols that would be very useful for us to have. And I would love to see you at a future in-person trainings. Look, to get in-person, seeing walking, all of that. It can be, both, but also fun. So I'll keep you posted since you're now in my mailing list. My it and in person gives us something pop up. Let me check the chat box. Okay, can the title of the book that you mentioned regarding what you deal with? It's not a book, Salamatu. Your question is not necessarily about how with struggles you're going up, but anytime you're trying to professionalize, you will meet resistance. The Art of War, sorry, The War of Art, rather, by Stephen Pressfield. And like I said, if you join my school group, I posted a link to it in that group. It's join that and I post regular insights and resources to help you elevate. So I'll share a link to that group in email for everyone that you yeah, so it's called The War of Art, and it's by Stephen Pressfield. And the first part of the book is brilliant. He describes how anytime you're trying to get to your next level, you will find resistance, right? I'll say to is I encourage this question, and I'm glad you're asking it. Before you send email, have conversation. I always think it's best for there to be conversation before a formal email. So if you can say, sir or madam, I'd welcome a chance to speak with you about something important, and just tell them face to face. It's my intention to resign. These are my reasons for wanting to do so. We'll follow up formally, but I wanted the chance to let you know that it's coming and I be work to my you always offer, remember what I said, you don't complain, you always offer a solution to whatever you may be complaining about. And you may, diplomatic, especially if there are issues that you had difficulty with in that employment. That's not the best time to give a grocery list of them, but to say, upon deep consideration of where I am in life and what my priorities are, I would like to inform you that it's my intention to role effective, and then you tell them when effective from. And I recommend not as the main event. I hope that's helpful. I see lots of gratitude. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about office etiquette and some basic protocol that will be meaningful for all of us to use as we level up in our careers. Again, will keep you posted as we come to our next I love, feeding off of the energy in the room anytime we have the chance to do polished professionalism in person. If you join my school group, you'll also note that I have a digital version of polished professionalism. If you're interested in taking the full course, you can, of course, just purchase it from the school group as well. But I believe that God wants so many of us to move into our next, and what's keeping us back aren't witches and wizards. It's really our underdevelopment. So I'm committed to helping them as will let me. So thank you for letting me be part of your journey today. All right. To the team at USCA, I hope this has been valuable to all the members of USCA. You're the reason why I pulled this together. And to everyone who saw it and signed in person in the future. Please stay in touch. I'll share an email later today. And time, be well. Stay well. Mwah, everyone.